What's up, guys? It's Drifts and Lifts here. All right, I am fired up. We're hanging out at Post Haste Performance here, and we have Miss Huff on the dyno. Come around here. There she is. So, if you guys saw the last video, I installed the new 531 head, ported, polished, and shaved 2.5 millimeters with a Timos 1310 cam in it. That was done by Dennis Blom in Sweden, so a huge thanks to Dennis for sending that over. Really cool to have hookups from you know, fellow Volvo bros in Sweden. So Dennis is the doctor. He's done this head for me. This cam is 13 millimeters of lift, 302 degrees duration, so it's pretty angry now. Dan just got it idling, so the thing's like, it's lumpy. It is freaking loud at idle. Completely changed how the motors sound. So Dan's just on the dyno. I'm gonna let him do his thing. If you guys remember, my previous setup was a stock 530 head with a K-cam in it, plus a header and, you know, simple intake or whatever. We ended up making 125 wheel horsepower and 140 foot-pounds on that. So yeah, we're hoping for like 150 horse at least. It would be really cool to see like 160 out of it. That's what we're kind of hoping. So we're gonna let Dan do his thing, and yeah, I'll film a couple run shots. We have the muffler on it hooked up in the shop. Sometimes he doesn't run that, but this car is so loud that we definitely need that. You can hear it lumping away over there. So we got the IPD adjustable cam gear on there. You need that to run shaved head, because when you shave the head, it retards the timing. So we advanced the timing on the cam. Should be pretty good. So yeah, I'm stoked to see how it turns out. All right, guys. So after, you know, 25 half an hour minutes of tuning here, Dan's got some pretty sweet numbers up on the board. It's hitting peak power so late. It actually pulls all the way out past 7,000 RPM. So what we did is we advanced the cam gear. We're gonna hope to bring it down a little bit. We want the power to come in a little bit earlier. As far as drifting goes, you want you know, a little bit more torque in the low end. So we're gonna see if this, we advanced it 5 degrees. We're gonna see if that helps it out a bit. But yeah, so the tune's going pretty good. I'm stoked to see what this made. So far, we got 169 wheel horsepower out of this thing, which is crazy for an NA red block. I didn't even know that was possible. So huge shout out to Dennis for this head. All right, so we advanced the time gear, and actually, as IPD says on their site, it more or less takes your power curve and moves it forward or back. It doesn't really change the curve too much. We found, at least on Miss Huff with this setup, that is not the case. It completely killed all the power. We lost like 25 horse. So we put it back to the setting. I'm gonna say that setting was just perfect, because the power it's making right now is like outstanding. So I'm gonna let Dan carry on, do his thing. Alright guys, so day 2 of just finishing off stuff on the build. So Dan's still tuning it right now. He's got basically the best number we can get out of it. It's making 170.8 wheel horsepower at 67, 68 RPM. So that's pretty reasonable. I'm definitely happy with that. That's definitely screaming. We have the RPM, the red line set at 74, and it definitely pulls all the way up there. So this car is going to rip real good. I'm pretty stoked. Yeah, so I'm just going to let Dan kind of finish up, and then we will check out some graphs. We'll overlay them and compare them to when we had the K-Cam in it. The K-Cam, a little more torque in the low end, but not even close to what it made up top. So this will be pretty cool. All right, guys, so that's a wrap up of the tune. Dan did an incredible job. It runs, we actually took it down the road, and it drives really nicely too. For being such a high compression motor with such a big cam in it, I can still drive it on daily, it seems like. Not that my neighbors are gonna really enjoy the super loud race car idle sound, or when I'm pulling out of the townhouse complex, but hey, they're gonna have to put up with that for a little bit. So here we got the two graphs overlaid. So on the top end we have the new graph with the head and the new cam, and the lower graph is the one with the K-Cam on the stock 530 head. We had the KL Racing header at the time. So if we look at the two graphs here, so thick line is with the K-Cam. So the thick red line is horsepower. The thin one is with the new head. Thick blue line is the torque for the K-Cam and the stock 530 head, and then the thin blue line is the torque for the new head. So if we look here, the K-Cam starting with horsepower. The K-Cam actually beat this new head setup. It's more chunky in the mid-range, which is to be expected with a cam of such high duration. You're gonna have, it's gonna pull a lot better in the top end than it is in the low end. 100 RPM. It hits literally like a VTEC. Dan couldn't actually tune that out. It's just how the cam reacts. That's its efficiency range. It really likes that 35. And as you can see, the torque curve just goes completely steep from there. So it hits about 3,500 RPM and starts climbing way higher than the K-Cam ever did. So it pulls all the way. We're hitting 171 wheel horsepower at, so we're at about 6,800 RPM right up there. And as you guys can see, it pulls nicely all the way out till 75. I think we left the limiter at 7450, I think that's where it is. So if we compare that to the K-Cam, right? The K-Cam and the stock head, you're done by like just over 5,000 RPM, and it steams out past 6, you're not really making too much power. So when I took it down the road, it really felt completely different in the top end. As soon as you get past 35, it just hits hard and just goes. And you don't have that weird torque curve falling off feeling that you do, in like a stock M-Cam B230, that kind of thing. If we look at torque, the K-Cam was still quite a bit chunkier in the low end, as to be expected again. So, but as you can see, right at about 3,500 RPM, that crosses over and the torque pulls way harder out to the top. So we're making peak torque now, 155 foot-pounds at just over 5,000 RPM. So that's a pretty high torque number as far as RPM goes. Yeah. It feels like a whole different engine now. I would actually compare it to when Takumi off of Initial D, I don't know if you guys have seen that show, but he ends up blowing up the 16 valve 4AG engine, and then he puts a 20 valve, and he had to get an RPM tack because he needed to rev it out so much more to get the power out of it. Anyway, so yeah, as you can see, what kind of gain is that? 171 wheel horsepower compared to the K-Cam's 125 wheel horsepower. I'm not very good at math, but that's 45 wheel horsepower gain from a head and a cam and more compression. So that's huge. That's definitely, an 171 wheel horsepower for an NA red block is pretty good. I will say my limiting point right now is the stock intake manifold. I did do some porting work, as you guys saw in the last video. Obviously I'm not the greatest at port jobs, that was actually my first time doing that. So it's tough to say if that actually helped or not. But at the end of the day, the stock intake manifold is the biggest restriction. So if I want to go past this point, I'm going to have to do an individual throttle body setup or a better flowing intake manifold. But I'm pretty happy. I'm happy with what it makes right now. So we're going to leave that for now. I'm just going to enjoy the car and do some drifting in it. Yeah, so there you go, guys. That's what it made before. The torque is actually higher on the new, even though it hits a lot higher in the RPM range. It still made 15 more foot-pounds than it did previously. So with the K-cam and the stock 530 head, it made 140 foot-pounds, and the new head with the timos cam 531 head, 155. So those are our numbers for the dyno tuning session. Dan squeezed every last bit of it he could out of this setup. So that's basically what we're doing. So huge shout out to Dennis Blom from Sweden for making this happen for me. Dennis gave me an awesome Drifts and Lifts bro deal on the head. He did all the porting himself. Dennis is really well known. He works at PMP Motor AB in Sweden. They call him the doctor because he builds red blocks and he knows what he's doing. So another huge shout out to Dan for the wicked tune. Every single car that I bring to Dan, he always sorts it out perfectly. So if you guys want tuning done, you know, modified car stuff, anything, we're in the Lower Mainland here, Chilliwack, BC, Post Taste Performance. So check them out on Facebook as well as Google if you guys, you know, want some tuning done or any sort of car modification stuff. Bring it over to Dan and he'll help you out. So yeah. That is basically a wrap up of the video, guys. I'm going to go for a rip in another video. This will be a little bit of a teaser. So you're going to get to see Miss Huff scream pretty soon. Not quite though. So yeah, I think we'll wrap it up right there. So yeah, lots of stuff to come for the channel. I'm going to be ripping on Miss Huff. I'm going to get a new GoPro. I've been meaning to do that for a while now. The old GoPro 2 is definitely not cutting it anymore. So I got a good deal on a GoPro 4. Gonna go pick that up and make some awesome videos. So hopefully this weekend we're gonna be going to a secret spot that you guys have never seen before. So that should be really fun. That's about it, guys. Yeah, like and subscribe for race car Volvos. Peace out.